Welcome to Andy Reads the Bible, where we're reading through the Bible from Genesis to Revelation in 1 year. I'm your host, Andy Brassfield. Today is January the 11th, and I'll be reading Genesis 32 through 34 from the Message translation. Genesis chapter 32. And Jacob went his way. Angels of God met him. When Jacob saw them, he said, "Oh, God's camp." And he named the place Mahanaim, campground. Then Jacob sent messengers on ahead to his brother Esau in the land of Seir in Edom. He instructed them, "Tell my master Esau this, a message from your servant Jacob. I've been staying with Laban and couldn't get away until now. I've acquired cattle and donkeys and sheep, also men and women servants. I'm telling you all this, my master, hoping for your approval." The messengers came back to Jacob and said, "We talked to your brother Esau, and he's on his way to meet you, but he has 400 men with him." Jacob was scared, very scared. Panicked, he divided his people, sheep, cattle, and camels, into 2 camps. He thought if Esau comes on the first camp and attacks it, the other camp has a chance to get away. But then Jacob prayed, "God of my father Abraham, God of my father Isaac, God who told me, 'Go back to your parents' homeland and I'll treat you well.' I don't deserve all the love and loyalty you've shown me. When I left here and crossed the Jordan, I only had the clothes on my back, and now look at me, 2 camps. Save me, please, from the violence of my brother, my angry brother. I'm afraid he'll come and attack us all, me, the mothers, and the children. You yourself said, 'I will treat you well and make your descendants like the sands of the sea, far too many to count.'" He slept the night there. Then he prepared a present for his brother Esau from his possessions: 200 female goats, 20 male goats, 200 ewes and 20 rams, 30 camels with their nursing young, 40 cows and 10 bulls, 20 female donkeys and 10 male donkeys. He put a servant in charge of each herd and said, "Go ahead of me and keep a healthy space between each herd." Then he instructed the first one out, "When my brother Esau comes close and asks, 'Who is your master? Where are you going? Who owns these?' answer him like this, 'Your servant Jacob. They are a gift to my master Esau. He's on his way.'" He gave the same instructions to the second servant and to the third, to each in turn as they set out with their herds. "Say, 'Your servant Jacob is on his way behind us. He thought I will soften him up with a succession of gifts. Then, when he sees me face to face, maybe he'll be glad to welcome me.'" So his gifts went before him while he settled down for the night in the camp. But during the night he got up and took his 2 wives and his 2 maidservants and his 11 children and crossed the ford of Jabbok. He got them safely across the brook, along with all his possessions. But Jacob stayed behind by himself, and a man wrestled with him until daybreak. When the man saw that he couldn't get the best of Jacob as they wrestled, he deliberately threw Jacob's hip out of joint. The man said, "Let me go, it's daybreak." Jacob said, "I'm not letting you go till you bless me." The man said, "What's your name?" He answered, "Jacob." The man said, "But no longer. Your name is no longer Jacob. From now on, it's Israel, God wrestler. You've wrestled with God, and you've come through." Jacob asked, "And what's your name?" The man said, "Why do you want to know my name?" And then, right then and there, he blessed him. Jacob named the place Peniel, God's face, because, he said, I saw God face to face and lived to tell the story. The sun came up as he left Peniel, limping because of his hip. This is why Israelites to this day don't eat the hip muscle, because Jacob's hip was thrown out of joint. Chapter 33. Jacob looked up and saw Esau coming with his 400 men. He divided the children between Leah and Rachel and the two maidservants. He put the maidservants out in front, Leah and her children next, Rachel and Joseph last. He led the way, and as he approached his brother, bowed 7 times, honoring his brother. But Esau ran up and embraced him, held him tight and kissed him, and they both wept. Then Esau looked around and saw the women and children. And who are these with you? Jacob said, the children that God saw fit to bless me with. Then the maidservants came up with their children and bowed, then Leah and her children also bowing, and finally Joseph and Rachel came up and bowed to Esau. Esau then asked, and what was the meaning of all those herds that I met? I was hoping that they would pave the way for my master to welcome me. Esau said, "Oh, brother, I have plenty of everything. Keep what is yours for yourself." Jacob said, "Please, if you can find it in your heart to welcome me, accept these gifts. When I saw your face, it was as the face of God smiling on me. Accept the gifts I've brought for you. God has been good to me, and I have more than enough." Jacob urged the gifts on him, and Esau accepted. Then Esau said, "Let's start out on our way. I'll take the lead." But Jacob said, "My master can see that the children are frail, and the flocks and herds are nursing, making for slow going. If I push them too hard, even for a day, I'd lose them all. So, master, you go on ahead of your servant. While I take it easy at the pace of my flocks and children, I'll catch up with you in Seir." Esau said, "Let me at least lend you some of my men." "There's no need," said Jacob. Your generous welcome is all I need or want." So Esau set out that day and made his way back to Seir. And Jacob left for Succoth. He built a shelter for himself and sheds for his livestock. That's how the place came to be called Succoth, sheds. And that's how it happened that Jacob arrived all in one piece in Shechem, in the land of Canaan, all the way from Paddan Aram. He camped near the city. He bought all the land where he pitched his tent from the sons of Hamor, the father of Shechem. He paid 100 silver coins for it. Then he built an altar there and named it El Elohe Israel. Mighty is the God of Israel. Chapter 34. One day Dinah, the daughter Leah had given Jacob, went to visit some of the women in that country. Shechem, the son of Hamor the Hivite, who was chieftain there, saw her and raped her. Then he felt a strong attachment to Dinah, Jacob's daughter, fell in love with her and wooed her. Shechem went to his father Hamor, "Get me this girl for my wife." Jacob heard that Shechem had raped his daughter Dinah, but his sons were out in the fields with the livestock, so he didn't say anything until they got home. Hamor, Shechem's father, went to Jacob to work out marriage arrangements. Meanwhile, Jacob's sons were on their way back from the fields, heard what had happened. They were outraged, explosive with anger. Shechem's rape of Jacob's daughter was intolerable in Israel and not to be put up with. Hamor spoke with Jacob and his sons. "My son Shechem is head over heels in love with your daughter. Give her to him as his wife. Intermarry with us. Give your daughters to us, and we'll give our daughters to you. Live together with us as one family. Settle down among us, and make yourselves at home. Prosper among us." Shechem then spoke for himself, addressing Dinah's fathers and brothers. "Please say yes, I'll pay anything. Set the bridal price as high as you will. The sky's the limit. Only give me this girl for my wife." Jacob's sons answered Shechem and his father with cunning. Their sister, after all, had been raped. They said, "This is impossible. We could never give our sister to a man who was uncircumcised, while we'd be disgraced. The only condition on which we can talk business is if all your men become circumcised like us. Then we will freely exchange daughters in marriage and make ourselves at home among you and become one big, happy family. But if this is not an acceptable condition, we will take our sister and leave." That seemed fair enough to Hamor and his son Shechem. The young man was so smitten with Jacob's daughter that he proceeded to do what had been asked. He was also the most admired son in his father's family. So Hamor and his son Shechem went to the public square and spoke to the town council. "These men like us. They are our friends. Let them settle down here and make themselves at home. There's plenty of room in the country for them. And just think, we can even exchange our daughters in marriage. But these men will only accept our invitation to live with us and become one big family on one condition, that all our males become circumcised just as they themselves are. This is a very good deal for us. These people are very wealthy with great herds of livestock, and we're going to get our hands on it. So let's do what they ask and have them settle down with us." Everyone who was anyone in the city agreed with Hamor and his son Shechem. Every male was circumcised. 3 days after the circumcision, while all the men were still very sore, 2 of Jacob's sons, Simeon and Levi, Dinah's brothers, each with a sword in hand, walked into the city as if they owned the place and murdered every man there. They also killed Hamor and his son Shechem, rescued Dinah from Shechem's house, and left. When the rest of Jacob's sons came on the scene of slaughter, they looted the entire city in retaliation for Dinah's rape. Flocks, herds, donkeys, belongings, everything, whether in the city or in the fields, they took. And then they took all the wives and children captive and ransacked their homes for anything valuable. Jacob said to Simeon and Levi, "You've made my name repulsive to the people here, these Canaanites and Perizzites. If they decide to gang up on us and attack, as few as we are, we wouldn't stand a chance. They'd wipe me and my people right off the map." They said, "Nobody is going to treat our sister like a whore and get by with it." And that concludes today's reading. It strikes me how the Bible, well, it just doesn't pull any punches, does it? We began today's reading with the reunification of Jacob and Esau, and what a beautiful and loving scene that was. But we closed out today's reading with rape and murder. It's all in there. Once again, we look at some of the differences in the culture of those people in the Bible and our people today, but some things never change. Men are evil. There's evildoers. But when you hurt a family member, then we desire to seek vengeance or revenge. I'm not saying it's right. I'm just saying it's human nature. Today's episode is sponsored by Big Tree Telecom, where you can get a world-class phone system without all the hassle and expense. To learn more about how we can help your business talk big, visit us on the web at bigtreetele.com. That's bigtree, TELE.com. You can find us on Facebook, YouTube, Spotify, and your favorite podcasting app, Apple or Android. Search for Andy Reads the Bible. Our podcast is located at www.andybible.libsyn.com. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you tomorrow.